Hello and welcome to my channel. In life, we often are challenged to use our spaces, our places, our voices to stand up in unconventional but big ways. We call that speaking truth to power, and we're going to talk about it in today's video. Let's go. Welcome to our lesson for Sunday, May 2nd. My name is Waynell Henson. Many of you know me as that Sunday school girl. And tomorrow, Saturday, May 1st, is my 6th anniversary being in this digital space, changing the way that people see Sunday school. I'm going to go ahead and start the celebration early. It has been my joy and my honor to be a part of a growing and thriving and an engaged community. And I love the TSSG community. You all are so important to me, and I look forward to celebrating all month long what God has done. I still look back on my very first video, which was about 6 minutes long, and I am amazed at what God has done. And to be honest, I think I'll make a video and share that story, but the very first video that I made, I had no intention on being here today in this space, even saying 6 years. It was 6 minutes that's become 6 years, but I honor God. I honor each of you. And just allow me to say very quickly, thank you for being a part of the community, and thank you for allowing me to serve you. I pray that your week was amazing, and I'm excited to get into our lesson this week as we study about the prophets. Now, the Lunchtime Live, this is the first time I've called it that. I don't know. God just gives me ideas and I give things new names. And I've been going live anyway. And some of you have given me feedback that you kind of like me going live just to review the lesson as opposed to an upload of a video that I've recorded and made perfect. So that's kind of helped me as well. And I think I've shared with you all that I'm a perfectionist. And so uploading and editing and all that, you'd be surprised at just how many takes it would required to do the lesson review. But I love this space. So you kind of get what you get. If I slip up on a word or something, I'll go back and I'll fix it pretty quickly. But this is a live setting. I love you all. And I see that so many of you are here. Glad that you're here. Please remember, everyone, to click the thumbs up like button. That does help us in our rankings with YouTube. We are currently still the #1 Sunday school channel for YouTube. And we have the largest and the most engaged community. So numbers on YouTube are not just numbers. You also want to look at the engagement. So thank you for being the most engaged community for Sunday school on YouTube. If you're new around here, allow me to say welcome. You have just joined the largest cyber community of Sunday school students on the World Wide Web. And again, I'm glad you're here. Make sure that you look down below. Go ahead and get subscribed. Click the subscribe button. Also click the notifications bell. I don't want you to miss any of the content when it's uploaded on this channel. Currently uploading at least 3 videos a week. We go live on Markup Monday at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. And now there's this lunchtime review. And then also I'll do a video for the children. And so I'm, again, glad that you're here. I know that you're going to be blessed. If you have not already done so, please note that the Step Summit 2021 registration is open. There are already more people than I would have imagined registered before May 1st for this year's event. And I promise you, it is going to be a great blessing to you. If you are a teacher, Christian education leader, superintendent, secretary, if you're a student and just want to understand more about Sunday school, this is the premier leadership conference for you. And I want you to be there. So be sure to check out the link. Let's go ahead and talk about our lesson for this week, which is Micaiah, speaking truth to power. I saw a different pronunciation of his name, but I've only known it as Micaiah my entire life. So if you have it pronounced differently, respect to that. Our Bible basis is 1 Kings chapter 22, verses 15 through 23, verses 26 through 28. The Bible truth. God uses the prophet Micaiah to speak truth through Ahab, even though Ahab rejects the message. See, that's one of those mess ups. Memory verse, is verse 14. And the lesson aim is that by the end of the lesson, we will defend Micaiah's boldness in declaring the word of the Lord, aspire to be like Micaiah when speaking the word of the Lord, and commit to tell those in power what the Lord has said. In this week's lesson, we are talking about speaking truth to power. And although we'll still manage this live a bit differently than Markup Monday, I see your comments, and you can go ahead and share with me what it means for you to speak truth to power. This is a lesson review. So at this point, I assume that you have studied. And I'm sorry, I do see that there are a couple of newbies here. So welcome, first timers. Sister Frida Turner, I see you definitely. And I think there may be another, but welcome. We're glad you're here. Go ahead and tell me in the comments what you have identified to be speaking truth to power. Even before we get into the lesson, I did some research. I wanted to understand what that meant. And speaking truth to power means speaking what we believe to be true to someone who's in authority. And it is a risk-taking position because you honestly don't know how that individual is going to respond, what they will say. It could actually mean something to your detriment. It can mean punishment in some way. It's actually a nonviolent form of attack. An attack doesn't always mean a fight. But oftentimes people who are on the receiving end have the potential to feel attacked by the individual who is sharing. I love this quote from the interim president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, who is Sherry Runner. It says, speaking truth to power means believing deeply in what you say and fighting every day to have that heard. It may not be popular. It means taking a risk. It means standing for something, taking a risk and standing for something. And that is exactly what we see in this week's lesson. As we continue again the study of the prophets, we are in the Old Testament book of 1 Kings. This is a book of history. And our lesson in this particular chapter, which is 22, takes place during the divided kingdoms. Now, if you want my notes for this lesson, they are in the description box down below. You can grab those and you can always reference these as a supplement to your own study. And yes, Sister Kimbrough, it is taking a risk no matter what the outcome. So by way of very quick review, we're several weeks into this now. And as we continue to look at God's people, the children of Israel, as they come out of the promised land, once they enter, at some point, there is a division. We're doing the drive-through version of this. When they split, there are 10 kingdoms that go north. That becomes Israel. And then Judah and Benjamin remain in Jerusalem. They become Judah. They're in the south. And you got to keep that in mind as we're talking about what happens. Essentially, they are siblings. And just like regular siblings, there's Israel, there's Judah. And in some sense, they sort of don't get along, but they will get together when it means kind of teaming up against someone else. They won't let you come against them as a collective. So when it comes down to sort of fighting to protect like their land, for example, we'll see in this lesson that there was an opportunity for them to come together. In our passage this week, I'm going to move a little bit differently today. Let me go ahead and read 1 Kings 22:15. So he came to the king, and the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear? And he answered him, Go and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it to the hand of the king. And the king said unto him, How many times shall I adjure thee that thou tell me nothing but that which is true in the name of the Lord? And he said, I saw all Israel scattered upon the hills as sheep that have not a shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, Did I not tell thee that he would prophesy no good concerning me, but evil? And he said, Hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, Who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And he said on this manner, and said another said on that manner. And therefore came forth the Spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, Thou shalt persuade him and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now, therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. And the king of Israel said, Take Micaiah and carry him unto Amon, the governor of the city, and Joash, the king's son, and say, Thus saith the king, Put this fellow in prison, and feed him with bread of affliction and with water of affliction until I come in peace. And Micaiah said, If thou return at all in peace, the Lord hath not spoken by me. And he said, Hearken, O people, every one of you. As we go into the lesson, I'm going to kind of manage this in just a bit of a different way because it's how it helped me to understand. There's a lot of movement in our printed text, but you needed to go through and actually read 1 Kings 22 in its entirety to understand this story. Let's talk about our cast of characters. First, we've already talked about the division of the kingdoms. And so there is King Ahab. He is the king of the north. He is king of Israel. And we studied about Ahab just a couple of weeks ago, and we learned about him that he ruled for 22 years, that he was more evil than all of the kings before him, and that he was married to Jezebel. He actually allowed Jezebel to be the influential force in his life, and she was the one who was incredibly persuasive in his being a worshiper of Baal. In fact, they built a temple to Baal in the capital city, which was Samaria. And so he provoked the anger of the Lord more than any other king in Israel. We know that from chapter 17, verse 33. So we have Ahab, who, king of the north, is angry. He is upset because the Syrians have taken possession and control of Ramoth Gilead, and it rightly belonged to Israel. Now, he was not only unhappy, because it's one thing to kind of sit in your feelings, but now he was ready to do something with those feelings. And that doing something meant that he was ready to go to war. Now, Ramoth Gilead was about 33 miles away, and it is said to have been a city of refuge, that it was a place that the king could run in the event that, quite frankly, he committed manslaughter and unintentional killing of someone else. It would have been a place of refuge or for hiding. And I give you a reference for that in the notes. Now, again, Israel and Syria, clearly they don't get along. It's been 3 years that there has been peace among them. No fighting has happened. In fact, the last battle happened, I believe, back in chapter 20. It was the battle of Ben-Hadad and at Aphek. And at this point, there has been peace. But now Ahab is done with peace. He's ready for war. But he understands this. He cannot go this battle alone. He is not going to be able to do this by himself. So I already told you, they may not get along as siblings, but when it comes to getting together to protect what is supposed to be theirs, there have been times that they would get together. And so he reaches out to the king of the south. That is King Jehoshaphat, who is in Judah. He wants to partner with him. He wants to form an alliance. You've got to be careful about who wants to form an alliance with you to do what. Now let's talk about our next character, who is the king of the south. That is Jehoshaphat. Now, he is a good king. That's important for us to know. We've already established that Ahab was an evil king. Jehoshaphat is a good king, and he knows without question that Ahab is an evil king. That's not a secret. He knows it. He knows who he worships. He does not worship the true and living God, but rather the Baals, the idols. We've talked about that. And so their lives are very different, but they do have a mutual origin. They also have at least one connection by marriage. I believe Jehoshaphat's son married Ahab's daughter. And so they have a loose connection, but make no mistake about it, on a regular day, they are not friends. And so when he has this opportunity to partner, to make this alliance, to go into battle, Jehoshaphat listens, but he's not willing to take a risk or make a really quick decision without putting first things first. Since you're here on the lunch chat, go ahead and put in the comments, first things first. First things first meant that Even though we can talk about our strength and what the battle plan is, he was not going to move until he had heard from God. That's a quick aha for us that we cannot take risks. Risk taking is important and it's often rewarded. But if we take them in the wrong way, they can be dangerous. So be careful when you have something new. Don't be so quick to make a hasty decision. One thing I always say is we are never in a hurry to do the wrong thing. And when you take your time and you consult God, he will lead you in the right way. I also put in the questions that I have for my class, I'm just curious, what differences are you willing to put aside when you have someone who may not be a best friend to you, but when there is a greater cause? Have there been times that you have had to put aside personal differences for the larger cause? You can just think about that. No need to respond. Our next characters in this lesson, if you read from verse 1, are the 400 prophets. Now that Ahab wants to partner, make this alliance with Jehoshaphat, and he wants to know what is God saying about it. Ahab already knew that this was an impossible battle, but he hated what he knew. Sometimes when people are seeking for advice or extra counsel, it's not that they don't really know. They don't like what they know. They don't like, so they solicit other opinions or advice in an attempt to hear something different because they want that. And as if it was going to change what Ahab already knew, he calls together 400 prophets. These are not prophets of God. They are prophets likely of Baal. And we've talked in this quarter about what it means and how do you know a true prophet. If you remember those two things that mark a true prophet, go ahead and drop those in the comments. We'll come back to that in just a bit. What are the two ways that we know that someone is a prophet of God? Because these 400 prophets are indeed, Oranges 18, false prophets. These false prophets are not men who heard from God. In fact, they all gave the same answer. They all gave the answer that King Ahab wanted to hear. Remember, Ahab is a man who flies off. He flies off the handle very easily, and people know this, and they're careful not to make him angry. They say what he wants to hear, what was impressive to him, what would tickle his ears, and certainly what would boost his ego. Ahab may have been impressed with the solidarity and the word of the 400 prophets, but if you kept reading, Jehoshaphat was not impressed at all. In fact, the answer from 400 prophets who said the same thing was not good enough for Jehoshaphat. Here was another aha. We must be able to discern when a voice is indeed a prophetic voice, but we've also got to be willing to inquire of God for ourselves. We cannot be impressed with any and every word that comes our way. And that takes us up to the meeting of our next person in our cast of characters, who is Micaiah. Because Jehoshaphat was not satisfied with the massive display of the 400 prophets and their word, he asked the king, he asked Ahab, is there a single prophet in this entire land who hears from and speaks for the true and living God? He was not willing to take the word of those from the idol gods. Who is it that serves God and hears from God? And of course, there was one in the land, but Ahab didn't want to call him at all. He was quite hesitant to even speak his name because he knew that he was not guaranteed to hear what he wanted to hear. As a result, Ahab doesn't even like Micaiah very much. In fact, we find out that he hates Micaiah. Micaiah has been before Ahab before, and so he actually calls for him. And the two kings sit and they wait for Micaiah to come to hear what God would say about this battle. Now, who knows what these 400 prophets were thinking or feeling as they realized that their collective word was not enough. People have listened to them before, made decisions before on what they said. And now here are two kings who sit together and their word was not enough. Sister Vicky Marie, truth tellers are not always welcome. Yes. And Sister Grady, how do we know a true prophet? What they say comes from God. Sister Shaniqua tells us that, and Sister Grady and others say that their prophecies always, not sometimes, but they always come true. Absolutely. So as these two kings sit and they wait, they've worked hard. These 400 prophets work hard to affirm to the kings that their word is good. In fact, they're still trying while they're waiting on Micaiah to come. In fact, it's Zedekiah who does a visual demonstration to explain how violent of a victory they're going to experience over the Syrians. Now, Micaiah's on his way. And as he's getting there, just before he arrives, there is someone who tries to stop him and to preempt him and let him know. Now, here's what all the other prophets have said. Now, when you get in there with the king, you probably want to make sure that what you share is in alignment. You know how he is. You know he gets angry. Why don't you just go along to get along? Don't stir the pot. This sets up our moment for speaking truth to power, because we've already established that speaking truth to power is speaking truth to someone who is in authority, no matter what, being willing to take a risk for the outcome. And that brings us up to our printed text, where now he is before the king, and the king asks his question: shall we go out to this battle, or do we need to just not do that right now? And he gets an answer. Micaiah says, go ahead, go out there. You're going to win. This battle is yours. God is going to help you. He's going to give you the Syrians. He's going to put them in your hand. Why would Micaiah say this? Was he a lying prophet? Well, just remember, this is not the first time that Micaiah has been in front of Ahab. In fact, by his own admission, Ahab didn't even like what Micaiah had to say in previous times. So I'm sure in Micaiah's mind, why would it even matter what he said? Because Ahab was going to do what he wanted to do anyway. He already had 400 men who had boosted him up, and he always did what he wanted to do. But Ahab realizes that something is strange here. He doesn't like his answer. Why in the world would Micaiah be agreeing with him? Why would he be encouraging him? No way. This is not what Micaiah does. This can't be right. Get out of here. You're telling me what I want to hear? And so he makes a demand on Micaiah. How many times do I have to ask you to tell me the truth? So I'm going to ask you again. Now, this was an aha for me in here before we move on. Two kings. Ahab is an evil king. Jehoshaphat is a good king. And Ahab has invited Jehoshaphat into war. But Jehoshaphat has a win happening here too. Check out how a good king has influenced an evil king to wait and seek the will of God. Never underestimate the ability of good to influence evil. And so he is waiting now. He's not moving. He is seeking God before doing a big thing. In verse 17, basically Micaiah says, okay, you asked for it. So here's what God really says. This is not going to be good. You're going to lose the battle, and you're not going to lose it in a small way. It's going to be big. It's going to be violent. There's going to be loss. It's going to be bloody. In fact, he says, I saw a complete slaughter. There was a beatdown. In fact, it was so bad that these people were out there and they were like a sheep with no shepherd. That was to say that they lost their leader in the battle. In other words, what he's saying to King Ahab is, you, sir, are going to die in the battle. And these poor defenseless sheep, they're going to have to return home and try to live their lives and work it out the best way that they can. And in verse 18, King Ahab is deeply disturbed. And he looks at Jehoshaphat and says, see, I told you. Every time he comes in here, he never has anything good to say about me. He never has a positive word. It is always doom and gloom. Here comes my next aha. It is so easy for people who are not yes men and yes women to be marked as enemies. Why? Because there are people who love to hear only what they want to hear. That is an ego thing when you cannot be challenged and you cannot hear in any other way. And so ego is on display, and he doesn't want to hear what Micaiah has had to say. But in verses 19 through 23, that's not all he had to say. Micaiah said, well, wait a minute. since you wanted to know, I get it. Like, you don't even like what I've said to this point, but there's more. He says there's more. There is a reckoning that must happen. We've continued to point out that Ahab was an evil king. And so all of this, the defeat in this battle, the loss of his life, this was going to be a reckoning for the behavior, the wickedness of Ahab. He was under the judgment of God. And so Micaiah says, I saw the Lord. He was sitting on his throne and he had a meeting. He talked to the host in heaven. They were present. And then it says, how are we going to get Ahab to go up to Ramoth Gilead to battle? He's listening to a lot of people. They say this and they say that. But then there's a spirit that presents itself and it basically said, pick me. I'll be the one. I will go down and get into the mouths of the people that he listens to, and I will put a word in their mouth that tells him to go out there and to do it. I will put lies in their mouths, and I will cause those 400 people to push him to say, you can do this. Why? Why would God allow this? Why would God allow this lying spirit to be dispatched? Again, this was about the judgment of God being sure. And God was never dishonest with Ahab about the methodology that had been used to get him to go. At this point, the prophet is telling him everything. You're going to lose. Here's why. And God has permitted it. God has allowed it. We've been talking about this, that Deuteronomy 28, the requirement for God's people, love God, serve God, do what God requires. God wants to bless you. But if you choose another path, if you choose to go your own way and to pursue that which does not please God, eventually God will give you what it is you think you want. Why would God allow lying prophets to be dispatched? Because this is what Ahab thought he really wanted. And God allowed, God permitted, God allowed him to experience what he thought he wanted. Except Ahab really didn't see his death being a part of what it is he thought he wanted. There's an aha. We again talk about the fact that we can never truly predict the extent, the outcome of where sin will lead us and the consequences that it will bring us to. And so God permits these men to say, go ahead, you're going to win. Here was another aha for me. Watch lying spirits. But don't just watch the lying spirit. Watch you. Watch what's inside of you. Watch your ego, and don't ever make it that easy for lying spirits to know what you like, what tempts you, what will tickle your ears, what will make you move in ways that you shouldn't move, appealing to that you love to persuade you into things that don't please God. The lying spirits even said this. Oh, he said, I'm confident. Like, just let me go because I am confident that this is going to be an easy job. So don't make it easy for that which tempts you. Micaiah was faithful to the Lord and to his direction. He spoke truth to power, even when it was difficult. What did he speak? You're going to lose. You are doomed. This is God's judgment, and God has allowed it. But speaking truth to power does not happen in our own strength. It happens when you have the assurance that God is with you. This angry king, he doesn't like what Micaiah said. In fact, he insists, he has an utter meltdown and insists that Micaiah be thrown into jail. He take him to the governor, take him to Joash, put him in jail, give him only bread and water in limited quantities. It was an attempt to starve him, but the word of God was unchanged. Micaiah said, if you come back in peace, listen, if this war happens and you come back and you have all your limbs intact, if you're even breathing when you come back, then the Lord has not spoken through me. And then he tells everyone around to watch, look and see whether the two criteria are met, that the Lord has spoken and that I gave his word and that it happened just like he said that it would. Truth to power means being bold. It means bold and being not intimidated, again, not fearing the outcome, standing up taking a stand despite the differences. And whenever you're speaking truth to power, there is always a disparity in the amount of power. That's why you're speaking truth to power. One party is more powerful than the other, but the lower party is willing to take the stand, willing to stand up, and finally to speak. Speak even, type this in the comments, speak even when your voice is shaking. Speak even when your voice is shaking. These are the major points for the lesson for this week. And in an effort to honor what I try to do as a 30-minute challenge to myself in reviewing this lesson, I will allow you to see the key learnings in my TSSG notes, which again are in the link for the description box here. I am also going to in this live, which is the end of the lesson review, but I want to come back and just talk again very practically. I'm going to start a second live that very practically talks about how to speak truth to power. Very practically, we've had our lesson review, but now very practically, how do you and I, how can we take this lesson and speak truth to power? I love you all so much. If I don't see you in the next video, I'll definitely see you in Sunday school. For those of you who are wondering about this Sunday, I will not go live on YouTube this Sunday. I will indeed play this lesson review for those who were unable to be present today, who were with me on Sunday. You will definitely have a replay of this lesson available to you. Love you all. Enjoy spending lunchtime with you. Have a super rest of your afternoon. Y'all take great care.
Sunday, 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 Sunday. Sunday, 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 Sunday.
This bag makes a great gift for teachers, and of course there's a church school version as well. Visit my Etsy store for this and other great items, and look down below this video for t-shirts for all ages and sizes.
Sunday, 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 Sunday. Hey, Sunday, 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 Sunday school. La da da, la da 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 da, la da da, la da 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 da, la da da, la da 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 da. La da da, la da 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 da. Changing the way you see Sunday school with that Sunday school.